Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and I am joined by my co-host Daniel Newman from Futurum Research on a new 6.5 Live podcast. And we are here. We just watched the Apple announcement on the new Macs, and we want to bring you our absolutely quickest of quick yet informed takes on it. How you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Big day. What is this? Apple Event 3, third in almost 3 months. That's something you don't see every day.
No, for certain. So as you can tell by the title, Apple announced today 3 new Macs, a new Mac Mini, and 2 13-inch devices, a MacBook Air and a 13-inch MacBook Pro. And the big thing here, the big switcheroo, is they are moving from Intel to their own silicon. And maybe it'd be best to talk a little bit about how we got here. So, Apple has moved its processor a few times. It started off with PowerPC Macs, and then it went to Intel-based Macs, and now they're moving silicon to their own Macs. And Intel has had some recent challenges, and Apple's Mac line hasn't done very well, in particular if you compare this to iPhone, Watch, and iPad, where they have big market share and big profits. And I think Mac is likely making big profits on the Mac, but it's still in single-digit market share. So they had to do something. So what they're doing is they're taking the guts of the iPhone and the iPad, putting them into a PC form factor and letting it run iPad apps and prior Mac OS x86 based apps.
A lot of emulation that's going to have to go on to make this run smooth. There's an undertone of the notebook experience of the future here, where you really are starting to merge the smartphone, tablet, and laptop or desktop experience into one.
Oh my gosh, it's called a Surface.
Hey, no. So you know the rules, Pat. The rules are 5G is now here.
Right.
When Apple announced it. Now, again, I was the most critical of that, considering I'd been using a 5G device well over a year at that moment. But there is always that second inflection point in time, and that's when Apple officially makes a new technology a global standard by playing in that space. But overall, Pat, like I said, you and I, we are not fanboys. We are realists about this stuff, and there's some interesting things the company's doing. But let's be frank. I mean, this is not going to be met without some challenges. You wrote a great piece in Forbes that talked about what to expect when we start getting PCs that are derived from smartphone silicon. I followed up just yesterday with a piece in MarketWatch where I talked a little bit about the potential risks associated with this move from Apple. As you mentioned, the Surface, and why I think Microsoft could interestingly be a unsung hero and winner of this transition, Pat. But you know what? This is Apple's move. It's been declared. This was declared not recently. We've known now for some time, as Apple loves to do. It loves to tell the market what it's going to do, especially when it can somehow handicap one of its ecosystem partners or competitors. It's just become its norm. We're moving away from this chip. We're moving away from that chip. But Apple said it was going to build its own silicon. It's going to continue to, whoever's got an extra $2,500 or $3,000 for an $800 PC is going to have the luxury of using an $800 PC for $2,300. And the benefit, like you said, is you can, have an iPad experience on a laptop. I mean, there's some other things, but maybe let's talk about what was announced.
Yeah, so let's dive right in and talk. I think the most important thing is to talk about the new chip. The new chip is called the M1 chip. Interestingly enough, they've gotten away from Bionic, and I'll call fanciful type of nomenclature. But hey, let's dive in here. And the cool part is real time. So here's their website. So it's a 5 nanometer chip, 16 billion transistors, but don't actually ask the company how they count it. That they won't actually tell you this. They made the claim as world's fastest CPU core, okay, with no substantiation. They also talked about it being 2x performance per watt with zero substantiation. And then on the GPU, they made a very similar claim, 2x performance per watt, zero substantiation, fastest integrated graphics, and best-in-class security, again, with no substantiation. But the good news is that they did talk about, they did have some asterisks and some explanation on their website. And this one right here, UMA, by the way, Unified Memory Architecture isn't new. I wrote a white paper on it 8 years ago when I was writing my own white papers. You can find that on my website. It's not new. AMD uses it. So this is nothing new. These numbers right here, 3.9x faster video processing, 7.1x faster image processing is on their own applications, which I think is fun and interesting. But the most interesting to me, where they start to go after Intel and the PC industry, is here. I love this. Now, I got to give credit to Apple, because they didn't put any footnotes on anything that they did in their WWDC. So kudos, thank you, Apple, for actually substantiating. But here was the fun part, and let me read footnote number 4. Testing conducted by Apple in October 2020 using pre-production 13-inch MacBook Pro with the M1, multi-threaded performance measured using select industry standard benchmarks against the latest generation of high-performance notebooks commercially available. So not only did they not say what they tested against, meaning like which models, that would be nice to know, they also didn't name the benchmarks. Honestly, my guess is it's probably Geekbench, a super synthetic benchmark that doesn't really explicitly reflect real world applications. So, you can see big claims here, because quite frankly, Apple has to prove to its buyers, because they are paying a premium on this, that this isn't, low-end silicon with low-end performance. But I am honestly pretty shocked. Oh, here's another one. GPU performance versus power. The latest PC laptop chip. Is that Tiger Lake? Is that AMD? Well, let's see. Let's go to number 7. Once again, using select industry standard benchmarks. Compare it against latest generation high performance notebooks at the time of testing. Maybe I spoke too soon. I was super happy that Intel actually gave a little bit more, but man, this is not a whole lot here. So,
well, this is Pat, if I can jump in here, this is Apple being Apple. We've dealt with this forever with their smartphones. You do have a privilege when you are the favorite child. And in this world we're in, Apple has that benefit where the standards that even are typically benchmarked and compared are done with a lot of leniency. I did read the footnotes on one of the performance where it talked about really a hero application, for instance, Final Cut Pro on the M1 using against the Intel product, last generation Intel product that in the Apple device. And it was a very specific, it was a 55-second clip using 4K video on an Apple derived application.
That's right.
It's a series of quotable moments that you look back, and when you talk about performance, you're going to end up saying, is it really better? And I want to just bring one thing to surface. To Apple's credit, Pat, Apple's never had to be better. It's the better marketer. Apple's a better marketer than the competition. When it comes to the technology itself, though, Pat, I have so many concerns when it comes to this new silicon. And
I got to tell you, man.
But maybe
you and I have watched similar ones, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but Apple used to put bar graphs, and they would directly show the competition. and they would show what benchmarks that they use. They would show that on stage. I used to give Apple a lot of credit for battery life. And by the way, this is on the same site. Listen to the details on battery life. Wirelessly Web Test measures battery life by wirelessly browsing 25 popular websites with display brightness set to 8 clicks from the bottom. The Apple TV movie playback test measures the battery life playing HD 1080p content with display brightness set to 8 clicks from the bottom. So, why not provide that same level of detail when you're going after your competition? So, my apologies for interrupting you, Daniel, but I do believe that Apple historically has shown that they were, in many cases, the better tech.
Well, yeah, and I'm saying I have always seen more people that buy an Apple, a MacBook, and we have them. You have them. I have them. I mean, that's our job, but we use them. I don't hate it. It's not terrible. In fact, some apps I like on it. But, the bottom line is that I never really, the shopping experience, Apple has become familiarized with the fact that people that buy their products aren't really paying attention a lot of times to these details. And that's where people like us need to be out there to educate. What you can get in terms of horsepower for that $2,500 Mac versus what you can get in horsepower with an Intel, an AMD variant, probably at half the price is usually going to be pretty comparable. But the people that end up buying the Mac, it's more like buying the badge on a vehicle. And the problem is the difference, or at least the difference in my eyes as a car guy, is you can also get the vehicle that actually has the engine. And sometimes you just get the vehicle with the badge. And the difference here is there's a lot of badge and not always a lot of engine. And I think the company has become very good at sort of recognizing, people respond to claims, Pat, that are not fully substantiated, because who reads the fine print? I mean, we sign up for applications that are going to take all of our data. We never even read what we're signing up for. You think anybody's reading these claims? No. The media, the pundits, the buyers will all read this and say, 5 times better, 8 times better, 4 times better. And you know what? It may as well have been etched in stone and written by, written by Steve Jobs himself from the grave. I mean, that's how serious people take. Nobody reads the claims. So I think it's good that you're breaking this down for people, Pat, because people need to be aware that these claims are in question. This is not necessarily the best silicon that's being built. Having said that, I do believe over time, Apple will continue to improve it and will create a good experience and will have a customer ecosystem. But I actually think this is a more and more compelling opportunity for PCs, especially the Surface, but all the PCs, all the premium and ultra premium notebooks, Pat, are becoming more and more lucrative right now today as this transition begins.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Some of the things that popped out here, I ran a Twitter poll questioning whether Apple would add features, lower price, or just take it in profit. Check this out. MacBook Air from $999. So it doesn't seem like exactly they're cutting price. They didn't add a feature like 5G, which is totally disappointing. I literally cannot believe they didn't add some kind of wireless to this whole thing. But maybe I'm getting out in the weeds there, Daniel. Just a huge shocker. The other thing that I didn't expect was that I know Mark Gurman had written about, was that the 16-inch MacBook Pro would come out. And a lack of a 16-inch MacBook Pro, to me, says that Apple was conservative. They knew that their M1 chip didn't deliver the performance that, and let's face it, the true pros. I mean, I know a lot of folks getting the Pro just so they can get a larger display, not because they're a professional and use workstation-based apps, but maybe this is where the M2 processor would come into play.
Yeah, I think the fourth event, Pat, is going to be necessary, because you could have an early December event that's going to be the Apple event 4 in 4 months, that the company can announce its M2 for its MacBook Pros and its larger format. Maybe the iMac will come out. with the M3, and that can be in January. But in all serious, you're seeing the evolution, and I think there's a risk mitigation factor here. The company probably needed to slow its roll. I talked a lot about this in my piece, Pat, is there's so many places the company's could potentially get wrong. When you move from emulation, right, we've got a massive overhang here for developers. Developers are now going to have to develop apps in two different, for ARM and for Intel. Mac's not going to immediately discontinue. Apple's not immediately discontinuing, but when it discontinued PowerPC, Pat, it was 3 years. So Intel is going to have how long? 3 years to basically likely continue to support, and then Apple's going to have to continue to support. And then when does the company cut it off? And when do users, by the way, Pat, studies show 5 to 8 years. 5 to 8 years is how long most people that buy a Mac use it. So people that bought the Mac in the last year, 2 years, are likely going to cross over from the time that Apple might just stop supporting the previous generation and variants that run Intel x86. So you've got
that would that would really upset some Mac users. And I'm glad you brought up developers, because it's like, what's really in it for the developers? Is this a volume play for them? iOS and iPad developers, do they get to charge more money? No, they're running iPad apps on a Mac, so they're not going to be able to charge consumers more for that. And my gosh, imagine, Daniel, if you have to put a new Mac app in the App Store and have to pay the 30% Apple tax. On top of that, the burden of maintaining two sets of code. I think there are going to be some developers who will likely just sit on the sidelines. And one thing that never came up today was compatibility. The word compatibility, and I'll have to look at the transcript, I don't think came up once, right? There was almost this presupposition of everything is going to be compatible. And that is 100% false. There will be applications that will break. There will be applications that won't perform as the user wants them. And there will be peripherals that will not work. And it's kind of disappointing. And to me, it does point out some of the big contrasts between how Microsoft handled this and how Apple is handling this, right? Microsoft went, we're going to do this in 10 years, right? A type of thing. It's going to be a slow roll with a lot of backward compatibility. Microsoft also is offering a lot of different choices. They didn't cut to one processor. They're using AMD, Intel, and Qualcomm. And for that matter, different types of GPUs as well. So a vastly different type of approach to developers and consumers between Apple and Microsoft. And hey, per your MarketWatch piece, Daniel, which it was like, I read it a couple of times. You might have something there. Who knows? Maybe Windows could be a winner, but then again, Mac didn't have much to lose with single-digit market share.
Yeah, I mean, Apple knows what it's doing. It's always targeting higher profitability and margins. That's what they're doing here. When the company went after its tech partners in 5G or in its modem business, it was trying to basically abstract layers that reduce its profits. Same thing here. Company is looking to make more money on every single piece of hardware. That's all it comes down to. But the question marks of will it be better? Will it work? Will things break? Will peripherals connect? Will applications run the right way?
Yeah.
These are all going to be things that are going to dictate the future, Pat. And so when you look at what's going to come next, I mean, look, my prognostication is there's some much higher quality PCs out there now. Lenovo, Dell, HP, all making much better machines. Some of them are Intel variants. Some of them are AMD variants. You and I both got to play with the Microsoft Surface Pro X. We played with Lenovo's. We've dealt with ARM. And by the way, there were some very cool things about those machines, but we also had some things that weren't great about those machines. And both companies are actually very forward in acknowledging that there's been a path.
And that's the key, Daniel. Man, I got nothing wrong with Apple or any other manufacturer making a move. I just want transparency. I want transparency to consumers. I want transparency to developers. I want transparency to the press and to analysts. And why have I written all these articles? Because nobody is writing them. Nobody's airing out these types of things. So that's why we're here.
You know, and I said this. I said the company will get it right eventually. That is not my concern. My concern is going to be that 12 to 24 months of pain is a long time. And when someone's spending thousands of dollars to be a beta tester for a new generation of chips, you will feel the difference. There is this is not something that is unheard of, by the way. There has been multiple iPhones out in the market in the past that use different chipsets that have greatly different performances and experiences. Right now, there are OEMs that build some of the best smartphones that are not Apple in the market, by the way, that use two different chip makers, and the experience is very different. When you go from an Intel to an ARM chip, it does not feel the same immediately. It takes some time. And like I said, I think they will get it right eventually through emulation, and it could even yield a better experience. And Pat, that's why I said I think the Surface stands to make the biggest market share gain if Apple doesn't nail this. And when I say what I mean by doesn't nail this, I mean effectively if the Mac pundits and the tech journalist community and the thought leaders and analysts basically do not find this to be 98, 99% of the same quality as the previous generation, there will start to be pushback. And then buyers are going to say, where do I go now? And the where do they go now, in my opinion, the only company that's really built products that has the same brand and look and feel that it wanted to compete with Apple. And long and short, Pat, I said, Microsoft's Surface line, I do not believe was ever designed to compete with its PC OEM partners in its ecosystem. It didn't set out to compete with Dell and HP. It sought out to compete with Mac. So this is an inflection point. This is a pivotal moment where if a customer is ever going to consider an ultra premium product that isn't built on, on Mac OS, it's going to be now if Mac doesn't get this right, and Microsoft would likely be the biggest beneficiary.
Wow, Daniel, every time I look up at the clock and it's like we're done, you've got something.
Sorry, I'm done. That's it.
No. This is important. I'm hoping that Apple leaves an escape valve here because you said at some point they'll get it right. I am not certain of that yet. Now, to give Apple credit, they haven't had a major stumble on their Bionic processors, right? They run concurrent teams, they have risk mitigation, and if their silicon isn't good, they can always lean on the OS because they own it top to bottom. I can imagine a scenario where Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, because we're not just talking about CPUs here, we're talking about GPUs, motor ahead, and Apple's back to the Power PC days where they're underperforming and they need to think about it. I would urge Apple to run concurrent lines with AMD and Intel in there. I think that's a prudent type of thing to do, and quite frankly, that's what Microsoft is doing. So, Daniel, if you don't have anything other to add, hey, I keep throwing another wood on the bonfire. Trust me, my friend. So, great conversation. And for those of you have tuned in, if we haven't answered your questions, please leave them on the platform that you're watching this from, either from Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, I think Twitter as well. Let us know. With that, if you like what you heard, go up to our YouTube page and press the subscribe button. If you have any complaints, give all those to Daniel. No, I'm just kidding. Have a great day, and thanks for sticking with us.